my husband's phone betrayed him on a rainy Wednesday night while he was upstairs pretending to take a shower. I was standing in our kitchen in Asheville, wiping tomato sauce from the counter and listening to the old pipes knock behind the wall when his phone lit up beside the cutting board. One message, no name saved, just a number I did not recognize, and 7 words that made 22 years of marriage collapse without making a sound. Last night meant everything to me. For a moment, I did not move. The dishwasher hummed. Rain tapped against the bay window. Upstairs, Nathan was singing under the shower, the same off-key line from an old soul song he had sung since we were dating. I looked at his phone, then toward the stairs, then back at the phone. My name is Claire Whitman. I am 48 years old. I spent most of my adult life believing calm was the same thing as weakness, because everyone around me treated it that way. I work as a compliance director for a regional hospital network, which means my job is reading between the lines, catching missing signatures, and noticing the sentence people hope no one bothers to question. I had never expected those skills to save me inside my own marriage. Nathan's passcode was still our anniversary. That should have hurt more than it did. I opened the message thread. There were no long romantic speeches, no poems, no obvious confession. Just short, careful lines that sounded like 2 people who had learned to hide in plain sight. Thank you for waiting. She still doesn't suspect anything. After Maya leaves again, everything gets easier. Then the last message. Last night meant everything to me. My thumb hovered over the screen. I heard the shower stop upstairs. Water beat against tile for a few final seconds, then silence. I typed before I could talk myself out of it. Come over, she's at her mother's. I hit send. The tiny word delivered appeared beneath my lie, and suddenly the kitchen felt colder than the rain outside. I placed the phone exactly where it had been. Then I rinsed the cloth, folded it over the sink, and sat at the island with both hands resting flat on the counter. I did not cry. Not because I was strong. Because something inside me had gone so still that tears could not reach it yet. 12 minutes later, the doorbell rang. Not 15, not 30. 12. The kind of response that proves someone had been close enough to come quickly. I walked to the front door and opened it. Serena Holt stood on my porch wearing a camel coat, polished boots, and an expression that had expected my house to be empty. She was 45, elegant in a way that looked effortless, only because a great deal of money had been spent making it look that way. She was an interior designer who had been working with Nathan's restoration company for almost 18 months. She had been in my kitchen twice. She had complimented my herb garden. She had once sat at this same island drinking my coffee while telling me widows learn to become grateful for small kindnesses. Now she looked at me as though I were the unexpected guest in my own doorway. Claire, she said. Her voice cracked on my name. Come in, I said. She did not move. Nathan said, I know what Nathan said. The words were quiet, but they opened the door wider than my hand did. Serena stepped inside. Rainwater clung to the hem of her coat. Her perfume reached me before she did, soft and expensive. Something with orange blossom and smoke. I recognized it immediately. Not from her visits. From my husband's collar. The stairs creaked behind us. Nathan came down wearing a navy t-shirt and sweatpants, hair wet, towel still around his neck. He saw me first, then Serena, then the phone on the kitchen island. The color drained from his face so completely that for 1 second I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. Claire, he said. Listen. I turned to Serena. How long have you been waiting for my daughter to leave for school? The question hit both of them in different places. Serena's mouth opened. Nathan stepped down from the last stair. This is not what you think. I laughed once, very softly. It startled all 3 of us. That's interesting, I said. Because what I think is that your phone lit up with a message from her. I answered it, and she was at my door in 12 minutes. No one spoke. The grandfather clock in the foyer ticked behind Serena's shoulder. My mother had given us that clock the year we bought the house. Nathan had always hated the sound, said it made the rooms feel old. I loved it because it reminded me that some things keep their rhythm no matter who lies in front of them. Serena touched the clasp of her purse. We should talk like adults. The phrase sounded rehearsed. Nathan nodded too quickly. Yes, exactly. We should talk like adults. I looked from one to the other. How many times did you practice that? Nathan's jaw tightened. Serena looked toward the door, calculating whether leaving would make her seem guilty or dignified. I turned to my husband. Is this the part where you tell me we drifted apart? Or the part where you tell me she understands you in a way I stopped trying to? His eyes flickered. There it was. Not guilt. Annoyance that I had reached the line before he did. Claire, our marriage has been over for a long time. I nodded slowly. Interesting, nobody told me. Serena took a breath. Nathan did not want to hurt you. I faced her fully. Then why are you here? Her answer did not come. Nathan moved toward me, lowering his voice. Let's not drag this into a spectacle. The kids do not need to know every detail. Ethan has his own life. Maya is trying to settle into school. We can handle this quietly. Quietly. That word did something to me. For years, quietly had been my assigned role. Quiet when Nathan forgot anniversaries because a client needed him. Quiet when his company ran late invoices through our joint account. Quiet when my mother's medical appointments became inconvenient to his schedule. Quiet when he called me practical in the same tone other men used for dull. I had built an entire marriage out of quiet. That night, I finally understood the cost. Serena shifted, and as she did, a slim folder slid from the side pocket of her oversized purse and landed near the umbrella stand. She did not notice. Nathan did. His eyes darted down for half a second, then back to me. Too fast. I saw it. Serena said, I should go. Yes, I said. You should. She opened the door herself. Before stepping out, she looked at Nathan, not me. That look said more than any confession. It said, fix this. When the door closed behind her, Nathan reached toward the folder. I bent first and picked it up. His hand froze in the air. Claire, he said carefully, that is not yours. I opened it. Inside was a printed closing schedule for a riverfront townhouse registered under a company called Willow and Stone Holdings. There was a deposit receipt for $42,000. There was a renovation budget, and tucked behind those pages was a handwritten timeline. Maya returns to campus. Suggest Claire stay with Ruth. File separation before Thanksgiving. Keep house calm until signature. I stared at the last word. Signature. Nathan stood in front of me with wet hair and a towel around his neck. And for the first time in 22 years, I looked at my husband and understood that the affair was only the door. What waited behind it was worse. He reached for the folder again. I stepped back. Do not touch me, I said. He stopped. I can explain. I know you can. My voice surprised me. It was steady, almost polite. That is why I am going to make sure you explain it to the right people. His face changed then. Not fear exactly. Recognition. He had expected grief. He had expected anger. He had expected me to beg, accuse, collapse, threaten to call the children. He had not expected evidence. That was his first mistake. His second was thinking I would hand it back. Before I tell you what I found in that folder and why it changed the entire divorce, tell me where you are watching from tonight. What time is it there? Is it raining where you are too? I want to know how far this story travels, because some women hear a message like that and think their world has ended. Mine was just beginning to tell the truth. I slept in the guest room that night with the folder inside my pillowcase and a chair pushed under the doorknob, like a woman in a movie who had only just realized the person in the house was not safe. At 5:18 the next morning, while Nathan was still asleep, I photographed every page. Then I started with the bank accounts. That is how betrayal becomes real. Not when you read the text. Not when the woman appears at your door. When the numbers begin telling the truth, your heart already knows. For years, Nathan and I had kept 3 accounts: my personal account, his business account, and the joint household account we both funded. The joint account paid the mortgage, utilities, groceries, insurance, and anything related to the kids. At least, that was the story. I made coffee and sat at the kitchen table with my laptop open. The rain had stopped overnight, but the world still looked wet and gray through the windows. At first, the transfers looked small enough to dismiss. $1,850 to Holt Design Management. $2,400 to Vance Harbor Strategy. $975 to W&S Retainer. Different labels, different months, same pattern. I searched the business filings. Holt Design Management belonged to Serena. Vance Harbor Strategy used the same mailing address. W&S Retainer led to Willow and Stone Holdings, the company listed on the townhouse schedule. Our money had not only followed Nathan into an affair, it had furnished the place he planned to move into after he pushed me out of my own life. I pulled 6 years of statements. That is the part no one shows in dramatic stories. The betrayal is not always one red-hot discovery. Sometimes it is 2 hours of clicking through bank portals while your coffee goes cold and the dog scratches at the back door because he does not know the world ended before breakfast. By 8 o'clock, I had a spreadsheet. By 9, I had 7 folders labeled by category. By 10, I found the first twist that made my hands shake. The $42,000 townhouse deposit had not come from Nathan's business. It came from the education account we had created for Maya when she was born. The withdrawal had been coded as temporary bridge transfer. Nathan had told me the account had underperformed because of market conditions. He had told Maya to wait before registering for her spring housing because there might be timing issues with tuition disbursement. He had used our daughter's future as a down payment on his exit. I walked to the sink and gripped the edge until my knuckles hurt. Then I breathed through it. Anger could come later. Evidence came first. I called my best friend, Margot Chen. Margot had been a litigation paralegal before becoming the operations director of a women's shelter. She had survived a divorce so ugly that she could identify a manipulator by the way he cleared his throat before lying. She answered on the 3rd ring. "Why do you sound like you're about to either commit a felony or solve one?" I told her everything. The message, Serena, the folder, the townhouse, the money from Maya's account. Margot did not interrupt. When I finished, she asked one question. "Are you still in the house?" "Yes." "Stay there. Do not leave unless you have to. Do not sign anything. Do not confront him with everything you know. And for the love of God, stop being polite in your own head." That nearly broke me, not because it was harsh, because she was right. For years, even my thoughts had been trained to give Nathan the benefit of the doubt. Margot gave me the name of an attorney. Jonas Keene. He's not flashy. He is expensive and allergic to drama. You need that. I called before lunch. Jonas could see me the next afternoon. That left me with 28 hours to gather as much as I could. Nathan came downstairs around noon, acting as if we had shared an uncomfortable conversation, rather than witness the collapse of a marriage. He wore jeans and the old gray sweater I bought him in Vermont years earlier. That detail bothered me more than it should have. "I made coffee," he said. "I already had some." He stood in the doorway. "I hate how last night happened. Not, I hate what I did. Not, I am sorry. How last night happened." A sentence built to make the discovery the problem. He took one step closer. "Serena and I crossed a line. I won't deny that. But you and I have been distant for years. I think you know that." I looked at him over my laptop. I know a lot more today than I knew yesterday. His eyes moved to the screen. I closed it gently. He smiled in that strained way men smile when trying to make control look like tenderness. "Maybe you should spend a few days with your mother. Clear your head. She needs you anyway, and this house is going to feel tense." There it was. Suggest Claire stay with Ruth. The timeline was not theory. It was script. My mother has a nurse this week, I said. She always says that and still needs you. My mother says many things. Right now, I am staying here. His mouth tightened. Claire, don't make this ugly. I stood. The kitchen seemed very quiet. Nathan, ugly began before I saw the message. I'm just late to the room. For a second, I saw the real irritation behind his concerned expression. Then his phone rang. Serena. He declined it. I smiled. That was the first time I saw him worry. The second twist arrived that evening through Maya. She called from college, sounding embarrassed. Mom, is Dad mad at me? I sat up straight on the guest bed. Why would he be mad? He said my housing payment might be delayed because you were rethinking some financial priorities and maybe wanted me to learn independence. I didn't want to bother you because he said you were overwhelmed with Grandma. I closed my eyes. My daughter was 19. Smart, tender, trying so hard not to be a burden because I had raised her to be considerate, and Nathan had turned that consideration into a weapon. Maya, I said, keeping my voice soft, you did nothing wrong. Your school will be paid. Your father should not have put that worry on you. There was a pause. So something is wrong. Yes, I said. Something is wrong. But it is not you. After we hung up, I opened another folder in my mind. Not finances, narrative. Nathan was not simply arranging an exit. He was arranging witnesses. He wanted the children to believe I was unstable, overwhelmed, maybe irresponsible with money. That way, when the separation papers appeared, I would look like the one who had drifted, failed, left. I did not sleep much that night. The next morning, I searched the home office. I had never gone through Nathan's drawers before. It felt invasive for about 30 seconds. Then I remembered he had used our daughter's education fund to buy a townhouse with another woman, and the feeling passed. In the bottom drawer, behind old warranty files, I found a binder labeled Millbrook Warranty Claims. Inside were no warranties. There was a draft separation agreement. There was a proposed home equity line of credit application. There was a transfer document assigning part of our marital home and the adjacent workshop lot to a new company called Whitman Creative Properties. Manager, Nathan Whitman. Design partner, Serena Holt. On page 4 was my signature. I had not signed it. My name sat there in blue ink, slanted wrong at the end, close enough to fool a bank scanner and wrong enough to make my stomach turn. A forged signature is different from an affair. An affair breaks trust. Forgery announces that the person breaking trust also believes your consent is optional. I photographed everything. Then I found a third folder, thinner than the rest. It contained printouts from an insurance portal tied to my mother's care plan. Appointment summaries. A note from a grief counselor I had seen after my father died. A medication list from my mother's neurologist. Across the top of one page, Serena had written in neat block letters, pattern of emotional exhaustion may support delayed disclosure strategy. Delayed disclosure. I sat down on the office floor. That was the third twist, and it made me more furious than the affair. Nathan had given Serena access to my private family and health information so they could create a story where I was too overwhelmed to make decisions, too fragile to question documents, too emotional to resist being moved out. They had not only planned to replace me, they had studied how to make me look unreliable when I objected. I called Jonas Keene from the floor. His assistant told me to bring everything. I did. Jonas's office was in a brick building downtown between a title company and a jeweler. His conference room had no inspirational art, no dramatic shelves of leather law books, no soft music. Just a long table, 3 chairs, and a window facing a parking deck. He was 60, gray-haired, thin, and so calm he seemed almost bored until he started reading. Then I saw his eyes sharpen. He reviewed the townhouse schedule, the account transfers, the Maya withdrawal, the forged property transfer, and the notes from Serena about my mother. When he reached the page with my copied signature, he took off his glasses and set them on the table. Mrs. Whitman, I am going to ask this plainly. Did you sign this? No. Did you authorize anyone to sign it for you? No. Did your husband ever ask permission to withdraw money from your daughter's education account for a real estate deposit? No. Did you give Ms. Holt access to your mother's care records or your counseling notes? No. Jonas leaned back. Then this is not just adultery. This is financial misconduct, potential forgery, misuse of marital funds, and possible privacy violations. We need to protect you before anyone realizes how much you know. The sentence settled over me like armor. Protect you, not calm down, not think about the family, not avoid embarrassing anyone. Protect you. He instructed me to stay in the house, freeze any accounts I could lawfully freeze, change personal passwords, move copies of evidence to a secure drive, and say nothing about the forged documents yet. Let him believe you are hurt and confused, Jonas said. People who think they are smarter than you will keep using the same strategy long after you know the trick. On the way home, I stopped at my mother's assisted living center. Ruth was 76 and in the early stages of vascular dementia. Some days she was sharp enough to criticize the way I loaded a dishwasher. Other days she asked whether my father had called, forgetting he had been gone 6 years. That afternoon was a good one. She sat by the window with a blanket over her knees, watching 2 cardinals fight over the feeder. "You look like a woman deciding whether to cry or buy a shovel," she said. I laughed for the first time in 2 days. Then I told her a careful version of the truth. Nathan had hurt me. There would be legal issues. I might need to keep certain documents safe. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she reached for my hand. "You were always the peacekeeper," she said, "but peacekeeping is not the same as peace." I stayed there until sunset. When I got home, Nathan had placed white lilies on the kitchen table. I used to love lilies. He used to know that. Now he used them like props. "I want us to be kind through this," he said. I set my purse down. Kind would have started earlier. He inhaled slowly. I made mistakes. Mistakes? The favorite word of people who prefer accidents to accountability? I picked up the vase, carried it to the laundry room, and left it there. That night, I began the private log Jonas recommended. Not emotional paragraphs. Facts. October 6th, 7:42 p.m. Nathan's phone received message from unknown number. Last night meant everything to me. October 6th, 7:44 p.m. I replied from Nathan's phone. "Come over, she's at her mother's." October 6th, 7:56 p.m. Serena Holt arrived at home. October 6th, 8:11 p.m. Folder recovered containing townhouse schedule and timeline. October 7th. Maya disclosed Nathan told her tuition delay connected to my emotional state. October 8th. Forged signature discovered on Whitman Creative Properties transfer. Reading it back, I understood something important. The facts did not sound hysterical. They sounded criminal. Over the next week, Nathan performed a husband trying to look remorseful while continuing the plan he thought I could not see. He brought coffee to the guest room. He offered to drive me to my mother's. He said maybe we both needed space. He said the kids would adjust better if we presented a united front. He suggested I meet with a gentle mediator, Serena knew. That was how I learned Serena had already chosen a mediator. I told Jonas. He laughed once without humor. Of course she has. Then Ethan called. My son was 24 and working as a structural engineer in Charlotte. He had Nathan's patience with buildings and my suspicion of easy answers. "Dad asked if I would help him convince you not to fight the sale of the workshop lot," Ethan said. "He said you were overwhelmed and might not understand why liquidating could help everyone." I was standing in the pantry when he said it. I reached for a shelf to steady myself. Did he say what would happen to the lot? He said a design partnership. Something with Serena Holt. I closed my eyes. "Ethan, I need you to listen carefully. I have not agreed to sell or transfer anything." His voice changed. "What did he do?" "Enough that you need to stop discussing legal or financial issues with him until I tell you more." "Mom, I know." "No, Mom," he said, voice hard now. "I mean, I know Dad. He doesn't ask people to help unless he already started something." That was the first moment I realized my children were not as blind as I had feared. They had only been kind enough not to say what they saw. Nathan's company anniversary dinner was scheduled for the following Friday. 25 years of Whitman Heritage Homes. A restored textile mill ballroom. Clients, subcontractors, lenders, local press, church friends, employees, and both our children. Nathan wanted me there. "We need to show stability," he said, "for the company." I understood the real sentence. We need to show that I still control the story. Jonas had warned me not to rush. Margot had told me the right room matters. Ethan had asked questions Nathan could not answer. Maya had already been pulled into the lie. The anniversary dinner was the room. I did not plan to destroy Nathan in public. I planned to stop him from using public warmth as camouflage. There is a difference. On the morning of the event, I met Jonas one more time. He reviewed the short packet I planned to carry. Not everything. Enough. A copy of the text thread, the townhouse deposit schedule, the withdrawal from Maya's education account, the forged transfer page, the note about waiting until Maya returned to school, the page where Serena referenced my mother's medical and emotional history. Jonas read the final page twice. "This one will make people angry," he said. "It should." He looked at me over his glasses. "Once this is public, you cannot put it back in the folder." "I know. Are you trying to punish him?" I thought about that. Then I answered honestly. "I am trying to make sure he cannot finish the plan quietly." Jonas nodded. "Then say less than you want to. Let them ask the questions." That evening, I wore a dark green dress Nathan had once said made me look like I belonged in an old painting, not black. I was not in mourning. Maya came home from campus and hugged me longer than usual. Ethan arrived early and took one look at me. "You're not okay," he said. "No. Are you ready?" That question nearly broke me. Not "are you sure?" Not "what about Dad?" Not "maybe wait." "Are you ready?" "Yes." The ballroom glowed with warm lights and polished wood. Whitman Heritage Homes had restored the mill 10 years earlier, and Nathan loved telling people his company had brought beauty back to abandoned places. The irony was almost too sharp to touch. Serena stood near the entrance in a burgundy dress, greeting guests as if she were the hostess. Her name badge read Design Consultant. Mine read Claire Whitman, Family. Family. I almost laughed again. Nathan moved through the room like the beloved founder he had always been in public. He shook hands, touched shoulders, remembered contractors' children's names, and kissed my cheek for the cameras. His hand on my waist felt like a lock. I stepped away. During dinner, he gave me a smile that asked me to behave. I smiled back. It startled him. At 8:30, Nathan took the stage. A slideshow played behind him. Old job sites, renovated porches, homes before and after. A photo of me standing beside him at the ribbon cutting for the Merritt Street restoration. My hair shorter, my smile unguarded, my hand in his. He began with gratitude. For clients, for staff, for family. Then his voice softened. And especially for Claire, who has stood beside this company through every season. Marriage, like restoration, sometimes requires courage to admit when a structure has changed, a few people murmured. I saw Serena lower her eyes with perfect sadness. Nathan continued, "Tonight is about honoring the past while allowing space for new chapters." There it was. New chapters. Presented beneath chandeliers, in front of our children, in the building his company restored with years of my unpaid bookkeeping, weekend hosting, and introductions to hospital donors who became clients. I stood. The room noticed gradually, chairs quieted, forks lowered. Nathan saw me and smiled with confusion. "Claire?" I walked to the stage with the slim folder in my hand. Each step felt longer than the last. When I reached him, I did not take the microphone from him. I held out my hand. He hesitated. The pause told the room something before I said a word. Then he gave it to me. I looked at the audience. "I appreciate my husband's thoughts about new chapters," I said. But before anyone applauds bravery, I think you should know how this chapter was actually written. The room went still. Nathan's voice was low behind me. "Claire, don't." I turned slightly. "You should have said that to yourself months ago." A ripple moved across the room. I opened the folder. "I am not here to tell a private story in public for entertainment. I am here because my husband chose this room to create a public version of events that is not true." I held up the first page. His phone received a message last week that said, "Last night meant everything to me." I answered it. The woman who sent it arrived at our house 12 minutes later. Gasps. Serena's face went white. Nathan stepped closer. "This is inappropriate." I looked at him. "So was bringing her into my home while you were upstairs in the shower." The room cracked open. Whispers spread. I continued before anyone could interrupt. "This alone would have been painful, but it is not why I am speaking." I placed the next page on the podium. "This is the deposit schedule for a riverfront townhouse purchased through Willow and Stone Holdings." $42,000 was used as a deposit. That money came from our daughter's education account. Maya stood so abruptly her chair hit the floor. "What?" Nathan turned toward her. "Maya, sweetheart." "No," she said, voice shaking. "You told me Mom was creating financial stress. You told me not to bother her." Every face turned back to him. I held up the next page. "This is a transfer document moving interest in our home and workshop lot into a company connected to my husband and Ms. Holt. My signature appears on page 4. I did not sign it." The room was no longer whispering. It was breathing differently. Then I lifted the final page. "And this is a note written by Ms. Holt using information from my mother's medical file and my private counseling history to suggest I was emotionally exhausted enough that disclosure could be delayed until I was easier to manage." That was the page that changed the room. Affairs could be dismissed by some people as messy private pain. Using a sick mother and therapy notes to corner a wife was harder to forgive. Serena stood. "That is not what that means." Margot, seated near the back as my guest, laughed once loudly enough for 3 tables to hear. Nathan reached for the microphone. I held it away. "You had a room full of people ready to hear about new chapters. Now they know who paid for the first page." Ethan walked to the front. His face was pale, but his voice was steady. "Dad, did you forge her signature?" Nathan looked at our son, and for the first time all evening, had no practiced answer. "It's complicated." Ethan's expression changed. "No, it isn't." One of Nathan's lenders stood near the bar and began typing into his phone. A city councilwoman who had recommended his company to a public housing preservation project folded her arms. 2 longtime subcontractors looked at each other with the silent communication of men deciding whether unpaid invoices now made sense. Nathan tried to recover. "Claire has been under enormous stress because of her mother. I hope everyone can respect that we are dealing with a difficult private family transition." I looked at the crowd. That is the narrative. The documents are the facts. Then I set the folder on the podium. "Anyone with a legitimate reason to review them may speak to my attorney." Jonas stepped from the side of the room, gray suit, expression unreadable. Nathan's face went truly pale then. He had not known Jonas was there. Serena moved toward the exit. Margot intercepted her with one sentence. "Leaving won't delete the shared drive." Serena stopped. I handed the microphone back to Nathan. "There, you can finish your speech." He did not. The anniversary dinner ended within 20 minutes. Not officially. No one announced it. People simply began leaving in clusters, carrying the story with them. Maya cried in the parking lot. Not loud, dramatic tears. The kind that come from realizing a parent lied using your trust as a tool. Ethan held her while I stood beside them, feeling helpless in a new way. "I should have told you sooner," I said. Maya shook her head. "He should have told the truth." That sentence kept me standing. Nathan followed us outside. "Please," he said, "don't let them leave thinking this is who I am." Ethan looked at him. "Dad, this is who you were when nobody was looking." Nathan flinched. I almost did too. Because he was right. The week after the dinner was not explosive. It was worse. It was procedural. Jonas filed emergency motions to restrict transfers from marital accounts and preserve business records. The bank opened an internal review of the forged transfer. Maya's education account was frozen for audit, then restored temporarily through funds Jonas forced Nathan to replace from his personal reserve. Serena sent me a 3-page email saying she had never intended to harm me, that she had only been helping Nathan through a painful transition, and that the medical notes were misunderstood. I forwarded it without answering. Then the fourth twist arrived. A payroll clerk from Whitman Heritage Homes emailed Jonas. She had seen the dinner footage because half the town had seen it by then. She said she had records showing Nathan had been paying Serena's firm not only from company accounts, but through a line item labeled Community Outreach. That line item had been tied to a grant-funded restoration project for low-income senior housing. My stomach turned. Nathan had used money connected to a senior housing project to fund the woman helping him exploit my mother's decline. Jonas was very quiet when he called me. "Claire, this may go beyond divorce." I sat in my car outside my mother's care center and watched an elderly man help his wife into a wheelchair. "Good," I said, not because I wanted Nathan destroyed. Because I wanted every vulnerable person he had used as camouflage to matter. The investigation widened. The company board, which had always been mostly ceremonial, suddenly discovered it had responsibilities. Lenders asked questions. Grant administrators requested documentation. Nathan's charming explanations worked less well when matched against wire transfers. He moved out 2 weeks after the dinner. He packed 3 suitcases and 2 boxes, leaving behind photographs, winter coats, and the old tools his father had given him. As he stood in the foyer, he looked at me with eyes rimmed red from sleepless nights. "I lost myself," he said. "I looked at the man who had used our daughter's school fund, forged my name, and let another woman turn my mother's medical pain into strategy." "No," I said. "You found out who you became." He closed his eyes. "I loved you." "Maybe," I said, "but you loved an easy exit more." He carried the boxes to his truck without another word. The house felt different after he left. Not peaceful immediately. Houses hold echoes. For days, I still expected to hear his keys. I still woke at 2 a.m. thinking I heard the shower. I still looked at the kitchen island and saw his phone lighting up in my memory. Healing did not erase the scene. It changed who controlled it. Maya returned to campus after we fixed her tuition. Before she left, she stood in her room packing sweaters into a duffel bag and said, "I keep thinking about that note. Wait until Maya leaves." "I know. I feel like he used me as a deadline." I sat beside her on the bed. "He did, and that is his shame, not yours." She nodded, but her eyes filled again. "Ethan came by most Sundays. Sometimes we talked. Sometimes he repaired things Nathan had ignored. A loose cabinet hinge, the sticking back door, the porch step that had creaked for 6 years. One afternoon, he found the lilies I had left in the laundry room, brown at the edges and sagging in the vase. He held them up. "Do you want me to throw these out?" "Yes," I said. He took them to the trash without ceremony. It felt like a small funeral. 3 months later, the divorce mediation began. Nathan's attorney tried to frame the affair as mutual marital breakdown and the financial issues as misguided planning. Jonas placed the forged signature page on the conference table. The room became much more efficient after that. The education account was fully restored with penalties. Nathan's claim to the house weakened substantially once the attempted transfer came under review. The workshop lot remained protected. The townhouse contract collapsed after the lender withdrew. Serena's design firm lost 2 major clients after grant auditors asked why her invoices appeared under unrelated project categories. The senior housing grant investigation resulted in repayment, sanctions, and Nathan being removed from management pending a governance overhaul. He did not go to prison. Stories rarely punish everyone in ways that feel perfectly satisfying. But he lost the authority he had used to hide behind. He lost the public version of himself. For a man like Nathan, that may have been the first real consequence he understood. Serena tried once to meet me in person. She came to my mother's care center on a Tuesday afternoon, which told me she still did not understand boundaries. I found her in the lobby, holding a small paper bag from a bakery. "I wanted to apologize," she said. I looked at the bag. "To me? Or to the building where you used someone's illness as leverage?" Her face flushed. "I was in love with him." "That explains your feelings. It does not excuse your choices." She said Nathan had told her I was already planning to leave him, that I used my mother as a reason to avoid the marriage, that the children understood. "Serena," I said, "you were in my house. You saw our photos. You drank my coffee. You asked my daughter about her classes. There were 100 moments where you could have asked yourself what kind of man needs help making his wife look unstable before leaving her." Her eyes filled with tears. I felt nothing. Not because I was cruel, because I had spent my compassion where it belonged. I left her standing in the lobby with the bakery bag still in her hand. That evening, Ruth asked why I looked so tired. I told her a woman had come to apologize badly. My mother patted my hand. "Then let her keep practicing somewhere else." I laughed so hard, the nurse peeked into the room. 2 weeks after that lobby encounter, Nathan made one final attempt to control the story. He emailed Ethan, Maya, and me a draft family statement. The subject line was, "For everyone's peace." The statement said Nathan and I had mutually agreed to separate after years of private strain. It said we loved our children, respected each other, and asked the community not to spread harmful rumors about people who were already hurting. At first glance, it sounded almost noble. Then I reached the third paragraph. It said my mother's decline had placed emotional pressure on me, and that Nathan had been trying to protect the family from the full weight of that pressure. There it was again. My mother's illness turned into his shield. My grief turned into his alibi. Before I could even answer, Maya replied to all. "Do not use grandma in your statement. Do not use mom's pain to make yourself look gentle. And do not send me anything that calls what you did mutual," Ethan replied 1 minute later. "I agree. If you send this publicly, I will answer publicly." Nathan did not send the statement, but Jonas asked me to forward it anyway. A week later, the doorbell camera from the night Serena came over finished uploading to the cloud archive. I had forgotten the subscription even existed. The video showed Serena stepping onto the porch, checking her lipstick in the reflection of the glass, and whispering into her phone, "He said she's gone. I'm going in now." The audio also caught Nathan 30 minutes later, after she left, standing near the half-open door while I was in the kitchen. He had called her from the porch, thinking the rain covered his voice. "Don't panic," he said. "She only has the condo folder. She doesn't know about the transfer yet." That sentence became one of Jonas's favorite pieces of evidence. Not because it was dramatic, because it proved knowledge. It proved they knew the transfer existed before I found it. It proved the folder had not been a misunderstanding. And it proved that while I was inside my own kitchen, trying not to break, my husband was already outside managing the next lie. I watched that clip twice. Then I stopped. Some evidence only needs to hurt once. 6 months after the text, the divorce was final. I kept the house. Nathan kept a smaller share of the business after resigning from daily management and repaying the disputed funds. The company survived because the employees deserved better than the man who had used it badly. Ethan did not join it, despite Nathan asking. He said he wanted to build things without inheriting his father's mess. Maya transferred to a semester abroad program she had almost canceled because of the tuition scare. The day she left, she sent me a photo from the airport with the message, "Still going." I cried at my desk when I saw it. Not sad tears, proof tears, the kind that tell you something was almost taken and wasn't. As for me, I did not become a new woman overnight. I became more myself slowly. I stopped apologizing for checking documents. I stopped feeling guilty for asking direct questions. I replaced the grandfather clock Nathan hated with nothing at all. For a while, the silence in the foyer felt strange. Then it began to feel like space. Margot helped me paint the guest room yellow. Ethan fixed the porch light. Maya sent postcards. Ruth had good days and bad days. On the good days, she remembered everything and asked whether Nathan had learned anything. "I don't know," I told her once. She shrugged. "Then make sure you did." I did. I learned that betrayal rarely arrives alone. It brings paperwork, witnesses, habits, excuses, and a story prepared in advance. I learned that people who call you emotional are often terrified you will become documented. I learned that a private humiliation can become public truth when someone uses a room full of people to sell a lie. And I learned that staying calm does not mean staying quiet. It means saving your voice for the moment it will matter most. Sometimes I still think about the text. Last night meant everything to me. It was meant to be a secret between them. Instead, it became the first sentence of my freedom. If Nathan's phone had not lit up when it did, maybe I would have signed something. Maybe I would have gone to my mother's for a few days and returned to find the house, the workshop, my daughter's fund, and my own reputation already rearranged into his new life. But it lit up. I answered. She came over. And after that, every hidden thing began walking toward the light. People sometimes ask whether I regret exposing him at the anniversary dinner. I always tell them the same thing. Nathan chose the room. I brought the truth. There is a difference. If you have ever stayed calm while someone tried to make you the villain in a story they created, I hope you remember this. Your silence should never be used as their evidence. Document what happened. Protect what matters. And when the time comes, speak clearly enough that the people who mistook your patience for weakness finally understand the difference. Thank you for staying with this story. Everything here is fictional and created for dramatic storytelling and educational entertainment. But the lesson is real enough. Trust your instincts. Respect your records. And never let someone who betrayed you write the only version of what happened. One more note for anyone listening. When the first strange detail appears, do not talk yourself out of it just because the truth would be inconvenient. Inconvenient truths are often the ones that save you.